with words, right? The words happen to be in Hebrew. But the Kodesh Baruch Hu is asking us to hear, which means he wants us to hear what he has to say. And that's the whole beautiful point of the Torah, that the Kodesh Baruch Hu actually gave us this document in which he would like us to hear what he has to say and then develop ourselves accordingly. So in order to hear well, you have to be aware of a few rules. The first basic rule is that the Kodesh Baruch Hu doesn't repeat anything. Everything is something new. And we went over it a few times. I won't dwell on it. But the point is that you have to look for both physical words, every physical word telling you something important that you wouldn't have known before, and also the content has to be something new. That's the very important thing. The words and content both have to be what we say necessary. You need every one of them, and they have to be telling you something that you wouldn't have known before. Okay. The other thing he tells us is that you have to be careful when you see changes of language or changes of concept. Those transitions are very important. You always have to say to yourself, what's the relationship between A and B? If A is different than B, why is it all of a sudden brought up here? Okay. And then you have to use your mind to explain all these seemingly redundant ideas or words, okay? So, as I said in the beginning, we have to hear, but hearing is an active process. It's not a passive process. You're not listening to a concert and enjoying the concert. You have to be involved in it actively to really understand it. And as I said, in any great study that the human being deepens his awareness of, there's always this idea of viewing things carefully, observing things carefully, and then getting deeper into an item. Okay, so that's true of Torah. So let's look at this Mishnah. We did it a little bit. And the Mishnah told us that there's 4 principal categories of damages. So we were medayek, that means we showed how each one of these words are telling us something very, very important that we wouldn't have gotten if we just read the Torah simply. Well, first of all, there's 4 avos nezikin, and this is very interesting because the Tana is narrowing the scope of his discussion to 4. There's actually 24 in the whole Torah that you would have to know the Gemara to understand. But he's narrowing his discussion of these 4. And he's telling us that these particular 4 are avot. Avot means fathers. And we said that in Av, you can only be a father if you have children. You could be a husband and not have children, but you can't be a father without children. So these 4 avot that the Mishnah is going to be talking about are generative, which means they're not unique cases, but classical cases. Okay, that's a very important rule, because when you read the Torah, we're going to see we're always going to have this challenge whether the Torah is talking about a particular case or that case represents a general class of cases, okay? But these are things that we will discuss further along the line. And the third thing we noted is that in Hebrew, things that do damage are called mazikin and not nizikin. The nun in Hebrew usually is the passive. So we said, well, how come the Mishnah changed, again, the shinui here, changes the normal verb from an active to a passive, okay? We didn't explain why, that's in the Ran, I just brought it up. Okay, now I would actually, since we really only meet once, so what I'm trying to do is going to push forward the discussion. My aim with you which is my aim with David and other people I teach, is to show you how to drill down and to understand the depth of Torah and to give you the tools to do it. So you're an active participant. You're not just, in the bleachers watching the game. Okay. So because of that, I'm going to move a little quicker. Actually, I think I sent you the document. You can look at my analysis of many of the questions in the Mishnah, but I want to move forward to the point that we're going to be drilling down to. Let's look at this statement here. Okay, so let's see. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here's our 4 avos nezikin, and we said that they were the shor, the bor, the maver, and the hever. The Gemara then tells us that each one of these 4 are not only they are classes, but they're unique classes. Meaning, the rule, the Torah is telling us something new in each one of them that I wouldn't have known if I didn't have all 4. Okay, which is our rule. You can't have a repetition. It looks like, why do we need 4 different categories of damage? Give me one principle that when my property does damage, for instance, I have to pay. And then I could learn, or pick any one of them, and then I could learn that general rule to all the 4. So the Mishnah is going out of its way to tell us, again, the rule. This can't be that these are extra. And it's supplying why we needed all 4. And the answer is because if I had only one of them, I would eliminate the other 3. Okay, and even if I had 2 of them, I would eliminate the other 2. So all 4 of them are necessary. Now, we're not going to dwell on that. If we had a lot of time, I would, but we're going to move forward down the line. After the Mishnah tells us that these 4 classical cases are unique, it says the following. Okay, anyone would you like to read? Julian, maybe take a stab out of here. Number 3.
Number 3, Hatzad Ashua Shebahen.
Okay, now what's a tzad? Anyone know? It's
Side?
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like the English word side, and it actually does mean side. So there's a side that's shaveh. Shaveh means equivalent. Shebehen in all these 4. In other words, they're unique, yet they share what we used to learn in school, those that remember their arithmetic, the lowest common denominator. The old days. Okay, they all these 4 have a common denominator. They have a tzad hashava. Okay, so not only are they unique, but if we put all 4 together and we look at them, we'll notice that they also share a common quality. We'll investigate that in a little bit, okay? But that's what the Mishnah is saying. They're unique, yet they share a common quality. What is the common quality that they share? Well, the Mishnah is going to tell us. Number 1. Julian, you're doing well. Keep going.
Shedarchan lahazik.
Okay, what does that mean?
That they cause damage. They have the possibility to cause damage.
Okay, the word derech means it's their manner.
Manner, right. Yeah.
Okay. All 4 things, these 4 things, their nature, I'll add the word nature, but derech means it's their manner. Their nature is to do damage. Okay? That's a common quality of all 4 of these things. For instance, if you had, let's say, a goldfish, and somehow it damaged someone, I don't think you would be obligated, because a goldfish nature is not to do damage. Okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, so in order to get into a situation where you have to protect others from being damaged, the property that you're talking about has to be something that is generally a damager. That's what it means, dark and lahazik. Okay, it's identified as a damager. It's I think in law you can maybe Josh will help me there. There's a thing called a clear and present danger. That's what sometimes the language they use. When an item is clearly dangerous, that reflects on your responsibility to protect others from it. So that's what the Mishnah is saying. All these four.
I was just talking about this in two different settings, which actually directly relates to this Shadar Khan. Is it is it the natural kind of way or tendency or manner of the thing to cause, to cause injury or damage? I was actually talking to my daughter about this yesterday. They went to kind of activity at a gym, and they had to sign a waiver. And she was asking me about, what would happen if XYZ incident occurred, and, would the waiver cover that? And for example, if she was in a harness and the harness actually broke, and and she was injured, God forbid. And so I was trying to explain to her that I don't think that that's what the waiver is describing, because that's something that's unforeseeable. That's not typically what would occur. They're talking about more of the shenanigans and ways in which little kids might get injured through their own fault. That's not something that's unforeseen. But if it's unforeseen and unpredictable and those kinds of things, then if no one could have known about it, then it's not the normal way. It's not what would be included in the normal discussion. So that's kind of exactly what we're talking about. We have the similar principles here.
Yeah, exactly. So, yes,
your revolver under your pillow would be
your revolver under your pillow?
Yeah, no, in Texas.
Oh, I forgot we're in Texas.
Yeah, that would be Shadar and Lahazik.
Yes, that's why you have a safety latch on.
Exactly.
Okay. No, now it doesn't mean you cannot have dangerous items, because people are allowed to have oxen, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you're allowed to have dangerous items, but you have to protect others from being damaged by it. That's your responsibility. Okay, and we're going to see there's a beautiful tension in the world between having dangerous things and the ability to protect, and even so people getting injured, right? They know, for instance, that every time that they raise the speed limit another 10 miles, they know X amount of people are going to die. They know it. It's just statistically, it's proven. So why do they do it? They want to see people dead? Not really, because there's another tension called the economic needs of a society. So on one hand, there's economic needs, which forces us to have these dangerous items, and we can't cut them out completely. Can't say, no, okay, no more oxen, because an ox can gore someone. So we have to cut them out completely. We can't do that because the world needs them in order to do fruitful things. So we put now precautions on them, and you are responsible to do what's correct to protect others. Now, if
Rabbi, I just want to point out, and I think it's a good strength for us to have a difficulty and then be able to put it to the side. But I just want to state a difficulty that I have right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually gotten strengthened. So last week we were speaking about Rav versus Shmuel, but Shmuel doesn't seem to have Karen fit into any of these categories of damagers. And now that we're saying that it's its way to damage, I would think, in contrast to a goldfish, I would think that it becomes even more difficult that Shmuel did not include Karen in any of those categories. So
okay, now the Shmuel will answer you. He will hear you. He's listening to you, and he says to you that the four in this Mishnah are dark and lahazik, meaning that you have to pay, and we're going to see in 1 second, complete damages if they do damage. The Karen that you're talking about is, again, a gray zone, because he is dangerous, but it's not called dark and mahazik. He can act up. Basically, the ox is more or less he's taking care of of plowing. He can get ornery and act up, but normally animals don't like to do that with human beings. If he starts acting up, then the first time you have to pay half damages because you do have to keep an eye on it. If he does it 3 times, then you have to pay full damages. So what I'm saying to you, the Shmuel will answer you. The reason why Karen is not here because it is a little bit of I don't know how to call it, a little of a gray area. These are clearly damaging items. The gorer is not something that he does an ox doesn't gore immediately when he sees a person. We're not talking about these bullfighting oxes. That's another story. They're trained to see a person and kill. But normally animals have a fear of the human beings and they don't do it. An ox has the potential, and that's why he's a gray zone. Okay. And that's why Shmuel's not, and that's why he's not in this Mishnah, by the way.
Right. And does this the teretz, the response you're giving, does that work separately or hand in hand with the response you gave last week that it's taught in the second?
Yes, exactly. That's why it's not taught here.
It works hand in hand. Fine. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Good question. Okay. Now, these 4, well, you should have come back at me and say, well, how are you going to answer Rob, who does have Karen in there? Okay. Yeah, I'm shooting myself with your gun. That's not good.
Not my family. Not my family.
Oh, okay, very good. No, actually, this is I always tell people that the real learning is honest learning and open learning, and all questions are good questions, and not all questions. Some questions are just not onto the point. But a good question is a good question, and it deserves a good answer. Okay, so anyway, here these 4 are dark and lahazik. There's another quality that they all have. Ushmirasan alecha. What does shmirasan alecha mean? What is a shomer? Anyone know?
A watchman.
Exactly. So who's watching? It means these 4 things, their watching is upon you. Okay. You have to protect others from being damaged. You can't say, well, I just said to you, I have to bring my shore to the, from field A to field B and go on the highway. And, so that's life. You have to watch yourself not to be damaged. No. When you have a dangerous item, you have to put in the proper precautions that other people don't get damaged, okay? What they are, I'm going to have a whole Gemara about it, okay? But that's the second quality. All these things are shmirsan alecha. The guarding is upon you. Now, what happens if you see another person eating food, eating another person's crop? Not your animal.
Another person's what? What was the question?
Crop. What happens if you see your neighbor's animal loose, and he runs into another person's field, not your field, and he starts chewing the cud over there and damaging his field.
I would say.
Do you have any obligation?
Can I answer
for that damage? You didn't stop the damage. Do you have
right? So I would say that you would think that you don't have an obligation, and because the rabbi's asking, I kind of feel like maybe you do have an obligation.
I would say no obligation. It's not your animal. It's you have from the number 2 is you don't have a responsibility to watch other people's animals.
Okay, I would change that and say that you don't have a halachic obligation, but you do have an ethical obligation. I mean, and when I say ethical, I really mean more of like a community sort of position. But if it's not,
would it be ethical to put yourself in danger to save the other man's property.
Well, you know what, if you see someone else's donkey under the weight of a load, you're obligated to.
Yes.
It's not your donkey, it's not your load, but you have that obligation. If I take that same philosophy and I have an obligation to the community. I believe that it's sort of the underlying value statement of Jewish law that we care for each other. And so
Okay.
whether there's a halachic with some sort of penalty or whatever is a different story than what your obligation is, in my mind.
Can
Well,
I?
no, very
I
good,
would like
very
to,
good.
wait. I want to agree with David Zoller, absolutely. And I want to say that the boundary that you might draw on this, you do have an obligation to do it. And I think the proof that he's bringing from the case where you have to even take your enemies if it's in front of you. So you don't have to go out there and actively find these situations, but if you see it, you're obligated only to the extent that it's not going to cause you to get hurt. If it causes you to get hurt, then it might enter a different category.
Well, let me throw this out, and Josh will like this, is if you're starting to worry about your neighbor's ox eating on your other neighbor's property, you're absolving your neighbor the responsibility. You're kind of transferring it to yourself. He is responsible. It's his responsibility to watch it. So
I think your son would call it enabling.
Enabling, exactly. Enabling, exactly. You're enabling the guy to alleviate his responsibility, because from the Torah, you're responsible for your ox. You can't go. Instead of trying to stop him and put yourself in danger and trying to stop the ox, like David said, and I do agree with David Zoller's position, is you have a responsibility to go tell your neighbor, hey, your ox is eating on the other neighbor, but to stop. So you don't absolve yourself you don't absolve him of the responsibility of fulfilling his commitment, his Torah commitment to look after his ox.
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
I
so,
agree with
yeah,
I
yeah.
agree with that, and I just have one more comment. I just want to take
Yes,
one more
please.
thing, and it's you're right, Julian. It's not my responsibility to worry about your ox eating Josh's land, but if I see it, I'm obligated to do something about it. And the same way that we look after each other's kids. If
Right.
someone else's kid is acting up in shul and the parents aren't around, depending on obviously the relationship of with the other parent and the understanding of who the kid is, we have a communal responsibility for our own. And I think that underlies sort of how we have a lens of what we deal with. Halakhically, we do not have an obligation.
Yeah. But
Okay, so I would just fine tune that a little bit. When you say halachically, I would even go further. You do not have a monetary obligation for the damage, but it does not absolve you from that spiritual obligation to inform your friend or to help him when he can. But
Right.
all the Mishnah is talking about is whether you have a monetary obligation. In other words, let's say, whose field was being attacked, Yosef's field was being attacked. Can Yosef now sue you for not preventing the damage from Shmuel's animal?
Only if you're a shomer.
A shomer, exactly.
Shomer.
But now he may say morally you should have done something, but
Right.
he definitely cannot bring you to a beis din and say you were the cause of the damage, because it's not your animal. So, but that's very interesting. Okay, so that's one of the qualities that these 4 items have. First of all, in order to be obligated to pay, it has to be that the item that you own has the potential for damage, and then we're going to have to figure out where the line is. Okay, remember these 4 categories are supposed to be defining that line. Okay, it's going to take us work. It's not so simple to define the line. Okay, number 2, if I'm going to be obligated to pay, then it has to be that I have an obligation for that animal. Doesn't, okay? For me to be paid, in other words, for basement to pay, okay? Number 4. Okay, so those are the two common qualities that these 4 items have. They're all dark and light. So look what's happening here. A very interesting thing. We're learning from the unique qualities of each of these animals, and we're learning from the collective quality, the LCD of all these animals, okay? And that's very interesting. In other words, these 4 unique animals have an LCD which will make you obligated to pay if you share those common qualities, okay? In other words, we're going to extend now the items which fall under your obligation to pay through what's called the tzad hashava. Okay.
Rabbi, can I just clarify?
Yes, please,
Clarify one
please,
thing.
please. Yes.
Are we talking
yes.
about shore, more, bobble, maba, and
Baba and
Hevel?
Hevel.
Talking about
Yes, we are.
sheen, regal?
Oh,
Like,
very
when you
good.
say 4 animals, are you referring to trample, pit, whatever? Or are you referring to shore, boar, maba,
Okay.
and Hevel?
Okay. When I talk about the 4, I talk about shore, bor, mava, and hevel. However, we brought up the difference of opinion between Rav and Shmuel. So when Rav talks about shore, he includes Karen, Shane, and Regal. Are you with me?
I got it. Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
okay, that's good. I see.
So when I say the 4, I'm talking about it globally, but we always have to remember that there is a machlokus between what they are. Okay.
You kept
But
saying animal, and so when I heard animal,
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's correct. That's not true. It's much broader than an animal because according to, we got fire there, which is not an animal whatsoever, and a pit, which is not an animal. So, but what I'm trying to say is that these 4 unique cases are going to share a common quality, which will allow us to bring other things into the obligation to do damage. How that works, we'll have to put that off, okay? Okay, that's called, in the morning, if you say the 13 mitos that Rebbe Shmuel talks about, right? So he learns that you can make a binyanah from 2 items. That means you can make a category from 2 different items or 3 different. And here we're making a larger category from the juxtaposition of 4. Okay, but I don't get into that too much. But here is another quality, keshe hezek. Okay, go ahead, Julian. Your Hebrew's pretty good. Number 4, what does it say? Are you with
Just
me?
to unmute.
Oh, unmute. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Unmute your father there.
Sorry, I was reading, sorry, yeah.
Oh, you were reading. Okay, go ahead. Ukesha hezek, go ahead.
Ukeshe hezek chav hamazek l'shalem.
What does ukesha hezek mean?
Keshe hezek.
Kasher means
Says when together.
kasher. Okay. When these 4 do damage, okay. What's chav?
Chav is a pay. Chav is payment.
Actually, here we have a shinui lashon again. It should have said in the Mishnah chayav. What does chayav mean in Hebrew?
Chayav.
Like a chiyuv.
Chayav. Obligated. Yeah.
Oh, obligation, right? And when these 4 items, I switched my language. When these 4 items do damage, the mazik, the person who owns those animals, is obligated, chav, l'shalem, to pay.
To pay or to make him whole, yeah.
Exact, to pay. So there's going to be now, it's not only do you have to watch it, okay, but if they do damage, you're going to have to pay for it. Now, just to point out, there's a shinui lashon here. In Hebrew, it should have said chayav. Chav is I forgot in English. Sometimes people contract words. They take a whole word and
Contraction.
yeah,
Condensed.
yeah, like the word can't. It's really cannot, right?
Can't, yeah, condensed. Or,
So we have, it's called contraction. So this word is a contraction, okay, of chayav. But it's a shinui.
Hamazak means the mazak is things that do damage, and ha makes it possessive to the person who owns the thing that does damage. Is that right?
chayav, you're responsible. Chayav, right? Is that the word, the lashon chayav? You're
Yes.
responsible for
Who is responsible? The mazik.
the
Okay.
damager.
Now, the animal, we have to be clear here, is never responsible for anything. right?
What's the definition of mazik?
Oh, a mazik is an item that does damage.
So if it's an item that does damage, so I don't know the way that.
Oh, okay, I hear what you say. In this context, it means not the item. Why is it difficult? The animal will never be taken to court and forced to be paid money, right?
Good.
Right. So the owner of it,
So it's the owner. So the owner is called the damager here.
Right.
It's the owner that's called the damager.
So mazik means to damage, and hamazik means the one who owns the one that damages.
It's not so simple. You're asking a good question. Ha-mazik means the one that does damage.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
Now, in this
Ha-mazik.
context, it means not the animal that does damage, but the owner of the animal that does
Got
damage.
it. Okay. I see.
Okay.
I'm trying to dig into the Hebrew, and I'm, just.
No, that's great. It's very, very important to do that. That's the whole, very important. Shema Yisrael is Hebrew. So you have to hear Hashem's language. He talks in Hebrew. What can I do? He knows all the other languages, and he gets the Art Scroll to translate. It's nice, but the purest communication with Kodesh Baruch Hu is in Hebrew. Okay. Anyway, good question. Okay. So here we're saying when these four items do damage, then the mazik, not the animal, of course, but the owner of the animal has to pay. Right? What does he have to pay? David, what does he have to pay?
L'shalem, you've got to make the person whole. You've got to pay the full damage.
Tashlume, but number one, he has to pay tashlume nezek.
Damages.
Okay, interesting word, tashlume nezek. Okay. He has to, let's see how you say tashlume nezek.
Like complete, make whole.
Yes, he has to make whole the damage that he did. So we're going to get into these type of cases. I don't know if we'll get into it, but it's a type of case. For instance, there'll be certain cases where, for instance, let's say your animal or Mr. A's animal gores Mr. B's animal, and the animal, when he was alive, was worth $100, but the carcass is worth $20. How much do you owe to the person whose ox your animal killed? Do you owe him 80 or 100?
80.
Now, when I say now, why do you say 80?
Because you've still got $20 worth of value left.
Oh. But it could be that I owe him 100 and I have to
Take the carcass.
take the carcass. And that's my problem, okay? So that's going to be a developmental problem. But we're going to learn that you only really have to pay tashlume nezek. The bottom line is going to be 80, okay? You really are only going to be 80. In other words, you're going to have to complete the damage. Yes.
Are we talking about when one ox gores another ox and the second ox dies?
Yes. The second ox dies, and
Right. There's more considerations. What if that ox was used, what if it cost more to replace the ox? What if that ox was used to do business for the man, and he had a a crop that needed to be, tilled, the week, and because of that he lost that business that ox was gonna help him with, like the future use of the ox. So there's lost wages, there's loss of use. What if he was born, and the ox was born in the home, and his children developed a relationship with the ox, and they're now, it's a lifetime of love and affection that's going to be lost. I mean, there could be, I'm not saying I believe this, I'm just saying there could be different kinds of elements of damages that you might consider with the loss of an ox. It could be, all these different things you have to analyze. It's not just,
Well, not only could there be, there's going to be a load of pages of Gemara and great Talmudei Chachamim going to be discussing exactly those problems.
in
Okay?
Parsha Mishpatim, they actually break down the 4 types of damages, not in this pasuk, but the 4 types of damages that I just mentioned, like, the loss of the actual value, the loss of the use, the loss of the love and affection, these kinds of things. It's actually broken down in when they're discussing civil damages. And of course, Julian's talking about the depreciation, and that's probably relevant too.
Everything, Baruch Hashem, is relevant, and everything has to be discussed. And that's exactly why we are only talking about the tip of an iceberg here. Okay, I tell people, when you're reading a Mishnah, you're like a penguin on the top of an iceberg. And the problem is, if you're not careful, the Titanic will sink. If you don't realize it's an iceberg, and you think that the penguin doesn't know anything's underneath the ice, does it? The last penguin I spoke to, he just was enjoying the sun on the top of the iceberg. He didn't know that it was down there. So for a penguin, it doesn't have too much of a difference whether he knows what's under the iceberg or not, but for the Titanic, it certainly does. Now,
Rabbi, can I step in?
Yes, please.
I want to first want to agree with Josh. I wouldn't have thought of those cases, lost wages, these types of things. I would have thought that the rabbi might, on the third one, the one about the sentimental value, etc. I feel like in our learning that the rabbis kind of said when it comes to monetary, it's monetary, but it sounds like potentially there is some element of sentimentality. There is one thing that I want to bring up separate from that, which is on
just one point.
Right.
What I'm doing is putting this on hold.
I'm good with that.
No, these are very deep discussions here.
Right.
I'm just saying that they're good questions.
Right.
They're addressed, and in the proper time, we'll have to. I don't know. We'll address them, but they are addressed.
Rabbi, I'm just practicing. I'm practicing saying back what was said. I'm not looking to explore it further right now.
Okay.
But I'm going into.
I wasn't giving answers. I wasn't saying.
That's fine.
Okay.
But
it's going to turn out. In Jewish law, we don't care about sentimental value. That it's your pet, a dog, and you've had a great relationship with him for 30 years. In Jewish law, when it comes to monetary compensation, it's a question of how much the dog will get on the market. That's how much he's worth.
Right. But Tush, I want to go into just something that popped up for me was the lotion of tashlume.
Yes.
I wanted to compare it to, I know there's a case, maybe it's in Baba Kama, if you steal an ox versus if you steal a sheep, and it's 4 times damage versus 5 times damage. And it seems like tashlume is drawing a boundary that you never pay more than the value of what you damage. You're only completing it. There's no kanas or fine on top. Is that fair to say from that lashon?
We're not dealing with kanas at this point, okay? We're not
Just
doing
making you whole. You're making the person whole for their damage.
Exactly. We're trying to compensate the person for his loss.
But I'm saying tashlume excludes the possibility of kanas.
It could.
Something at a higher level than 100%.
But this word, but the word shalem from whole. You're making the person whole. Tashlume is it's Knas, I don't think even comes into it. That's a different topic.
That's
Right,
my
Rabbi?
point. That's my point, is that Tashlume would seem to restrict this to making the person whole. This would never mean that you pay more than the value of the item itself. In
Yeah.
fact,
It's a good point. Write it down. Okay, it's a good point. And
Fine.
hold on to it, okay? Now, the next two words are at least 20 years of study.
Yeah, the mate of Aretz, yeah.
What's the next two words?
The mate of Aretz.
Yeah, the mate of ours. Okay, these two words are very, very deep. Okay, so it says that these four items, when you pay for damages, you have to pay with the best of your land.
Mhm.
Okay, it's a very unusual law because I have to compensate you for what I did. Now, all of a sudden, we're talking about the amount of compensation that I have to give you, and all of a sudden, we switched here to the quality of payment. Are you with me?
Yes.
And it says if I choose to pay you with land, I have to pay you with the best of land. Okay? So it's a very unusual two little words over here. And I can't say much more because that's going to be the focus of a lot of our study. Okay? What I did with those two words is I took them through 3,333 years of Torah investigation. Are you ready? You guys, well, I don't think we're going to live long enough to do. Well, we will do, we're going to hit the high points, okay? Now, the point is, what I want to show you is exactly, I want to show you how to drill down or to look, to stop being a penguin and to actually drill down into the iceberg, if I can mix the metaphor, okay? So in order to do that, what we're going to do together is we're going to investigate these two words. We're going to look at the pasuk that they brought, and we're going to look at the discussion that the Gemara has about it. And then we're going to start looking at the people after the Gemara, called the Rishonim, how they evaluate the Gemara did. And then we're going to look at the Tur, which is a Shulchan Aruch, and then we're going to look at the Beit Yosef, all the way down, Bezrat Hashem, to the great Rosh Hashivas of the last generation in Europe. And they're all talking about those two words. Could you imagine? How could translate the words. You pay when it's very simple. When you damage someone and you decide that you want to pay him in land, you have to give him your best land. What would entail 3,300 years of learning about those two words? Okay. So that's what we're going to do. What I'm going to do, and there's a reason why I'm doing it, because many people see Torah as a disjointed study. In other words, sometimes you learn a little Gemara, sometimes you learn a little Chumash, sometimes you learn a little Mishnah, sometimes you learn a Halacha, and everything that you do is not related to the other thing. It's another study. Sometimes I learn Midrash, sometimes now, what I'm trying to do is to take this one point here. It could have been any point, but I took this point, and I'll explain to you why, and to drill down and to take it through all our literature. Now, I can't do it through all our literature because of just the question of time, but we'll do the high points, okay? And we'll start seeing how these two little words open up a whole world of understanding in damages, okay? Two words, and they're going to be so pregnant, if I can use that term, that it'll open up a gigantic understanding. Now, I did show you at one point, did I show you my PowerPoint? I think I did. Did I show you my PowerPoint presentation?
On what topic?
on how these two words are connected to.
Oh, the Gezerah Shava, the fourth level.
Okay. So I'll give you a preview, okay? But I just want to show you what Torah is about. People underestimate the Kodesh Baruch Hu. They give a lot of credit to Einstein, they give credit to Galileo, but when it comes to the Kodesh Baruch Hu, kid, that's good for kids, send your little kid to Cheder, and he'll learn a few words. It's nice, and then, so unfortunately, that's one of the biggest crimes against the Kodesh Baruch Hu, is that this underestimation of the creator of the universe and the Torah that he gave us. So by investigating these two words, I hope to bring us into an understanding of what Torah is about. Because if this depth of knowledge exists in two words, imagine all the other thousands of words in the Torah, what exists there, and how big and complex it is. So I took one little example, and I'm going to, with the Kodesh Baruch Hu's help, and these tools written by the Ramchal and by Yitzhak Kanto, which I'm going to give you, we're going to start drilling down Texas terms until we hit pay dirt or oil, okay? And we're going to go layer by layer by layer by layer by layer in our analysis. And once you see that, you first of all see that the Torah is fantastic. It's a document. I mean, everybody knows it's the greatest story ever told. It's not a story, it's a history, but everyone knows that Torah is unique, but they really don't know how unique it is. So by taking this journey together of drilling down into these two words, I hope to bring us to a little bit of an awareness of how great the Torah is that the Kodesh Baruch Hu gave to us. Okay, so just as a what could I call it? What do they call it? A tease, or what? When they have these movies, they put out a few little scenes.
Like a
Preview.
trailer or a teaser.
Preview.
A trailer or a teaser. Okay, so I'll put out a little teaser here for you. Okay, just to show you a little bit of what I'm talking about. Okay, let's see if I can find. Well, look this.
Rabbi, while you're searching for this,
Yes, please.
Apologize in advance. I'm gonna have to jump off a few minutes.
Yeah. Yes.
And didn't want to be rude and jump off, but
Yeah, me too. I've got my phone rang twice that I've.
while
Okay,
you're looking
yeah,
at this, I'm
great.
just gonna share it. I'm gonna give you a little teaser. David and I, Zoller, we learned one of the Gemaras we learned was Peah. And not that I remember the details of Peah. Peah talks a little bit about the
We learned
corner
the
of the
Mishnah.
field and who should happen, what should happen with the various kinds of fruit. But I can tell you that you see two words there, the best of the land. And I do remember that we spent probably 2 years on talking about, what happens depending on the kind of fruit that's in the corner and all these kinds of things. So if we can, spend a couple of years just talking about that, what happens depending on the corner of the field, then I can totally understand how it's taken 3,000 years to figure out what the best of the field means. Here.
Okay, here's the best of the field in the center of this diagram. Okay.
So open the.
I didn't do it again. I didn't.
Just to mention, we need to stop in 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Just 5 minutes and I'll stop. I just want to, give you a teaser. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. This diagram, all the green points in this diagram are different lines in the Torah. Okay. They all are going to be connected by the red arrows. And what is going to flow on this connection? What's going to flow on this connection is Meitav Haaretz, believe it or not. The law of Meitav Haaretz really only exists in Shein and Regel, in one line, in one verse in the Torah. It's going to be linked to these 24 other Pesukim through this Gezerah Shava, through these words here, okay? So, welcome to the depth of the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Okay, but that's what I want to bring to you. But in a slow and progressive way. I don't want to, overwhelm you, but I had to put on the teaser because
Right.
you have to know where I'm going with it.
Maybe this is a good stopping point. This is
I will. Okay. All right. So we'll see you next week. And